I was at a great event recently, and I heard one of the speakers mention something that one of his advisors said to him. And when I heard it, I thought, oh my gosh, that's beautiful and brilliant, and it applies so much to what I talk to my coaching clients about. So in today's episode, I want to share that simple statement with you, but dissect the depth and the power behind the questions that it asks that are far more important than it might seem on the surface. So let's cue up the theme song and jump right into it.
Welcome to Racking Up Rentals, a show about how regular people, those of us without huge war chests of capital or insider connections, can build lasting wealth acquiring a portfolio of buy and hold real estate. But we don't just go mainstream looking at what's on the market and asking banks for loans, nor are we posting "we buy houses" signs or just looking for, quote, motivated sellers to make lowball offers to. You see, we are people-oriented deal makers. We sit down directly with sellers to work out win-win deals without agents or any other obstacles and buy properties nobody else even knows are for sale. I'm Jeff from The Thoughtful Real Estate Entrepreneur. If you're the kind of real estate investor who wants long-term wealth, not get-rich-quick gimmicks or pictures of yourself holding fat checks on social media, this show is for you. Join me and quietly become the wealthiest person on your block. Now let's go rack up a rental portfolio.
Hey, thanks for joining me for another episode of Racking Up Rentals. Show notes for this episode can be found at thoughtfulre.com/E128. Please do us a big favor by hitting the subscribe button in whatever podcast app you are using. It really helps fellow thoughtful real estate entrepreneurs to find this show. And of course, make sure that you don't miss any upcoming episodes. Onward with today's episode. So I was at this event recently, and the speaker on stage was telling the audience that I was a part of something that one of his advisors said to me. And what the advisor said was this: don't tell me what you have and what you can do with it. Tell me what's possible and what you need to achieve it. Okay? Let me say that again, because we're going to dissect it and break it down. Don't tell me what you have and what you can do with it. Tell me what's possible and what you need to achieve it. Okay, so let's just take the first half of this, because these are two different ways of thinking, and it applies so directly and so powerfully to how we think about the deals that we are looking at doing. So the first part of this sentence is, don't tell me what you have and what you can do with it, right? So what we tend to do is we tend to look at our resources and say, well, okay, here's what I've got to work with. Maybe it's, I've got $10,000. I've got a good credit score. I've got a bad credit score. I've got some property management experience. But we look at it, we say, here's what I have. And then we ask, what can I do with it, right? So we look in our wallet, we say, okay, we've got $10,000. What can we do real estate investing wise with those $10,000, right? And that's a very natural thought process. It's a very common sense way to think about it, but it's also a very limiting way to think about it, because you are only seeing things that you feel like are possible with the resources that you have. Now let's revisit the second half of this sentence. Instead, tell me what's possible and what you need to achieve it. Okay, so in this case, what this person is saying is, stop worrying about the resources that you have or don't have, and instead, let's look at an opportunity and figure out what's possible with that opportunity. Then we'll make a list of what we need to go out and to fulfill that opportunity that we see. Now, this is a very different mentality, right? As a real estate investor, from a deal-by-deal perspective, what this is saying is, when you have a deal, take a look at that deal and figure out where the opportunity is. Figure out what maybe the highest and best use of that property is, so to speak. Figure out where you see the greatest upside, where you see the greatest opportunity, without worrying at all about whether you think you have the resources to do that deal or not. Then, once you know what the greatest opportunity is, now make a list of what you would need to achieve it. And instead of worrying about what we have, we now have a list of what we need to go out and gather on a resource type of level to fulfill the potential that we have found. So if I could sort of summarize one main question, one main topic that I find myself talking with my coaching clients about, it is really this. Because there are two questions as we look at a deal that we tend to smash together into one question. The question we ask ourselves is, okay, I've got a deal. How can I make the most of this deal with the resources I have? That's the natural question that we ask ourselves. But the better way to approach this is to ask two separate questions. The first question is this a deal? And if so, how is it a deal? What is it that makes this a good opportunity? Is this a deal worth doing? We'd have to look at that question by itself without worrying about anything besides that. So we just simply need to answer that question first and foremost. Is this a deal worth doing? Is there opportunity here? And what does that look like? The second question, though, that we then ask ourselves is, if it is indeed a deal, what do I need to assemble in order to do that deal, right? So now that we see that there's an opportunity there, we might say, well, okay, it's going to need, 4 pallets of 2x4s, and it's going to take this amount of paint, and it's going to take this amount of money to do that. And now we've got basically a shopping list that says we have a project that is worth doing. Now we're going to go out and we are going to acquire the resources we need. I love to make this analogy about cookies. You can look in your pantry and say, well, I've got, a half a cup of chocolate chips, and I've got some coconut flour, and I've got some potato chips and this and that. What can I make with that? Okay, I want to make cookies. Well, it might end up being some weird cookies if we try to just bake cookies with what we have. On the other hand, we can look at our vision and say, I want to have a big, beautiful plate of 24 cookies. Now that I've seen that vision in my mind, and I know it's a worthy project, I know I can picture myself enjoying those tonight. I can picture myself giving some to my neighbor and, having my kids enjoy them, etc. What do I need in order to bake that batch of cookies? Oh, with chocolate chips? Great. I've got some of those. I might need a few more. Over here, we're going to need to get some eggs. I'm going to need to get a different kind of flour, etc. But we focus on the vision first and what's possible, and then we focus secondly on achieving or assembling the resources that we need to achieve that goal. So here is my encouragement to you. I realize that it's perfectly natural to look at any opportunity and say, how can I do this deal with the resources I have? But we have to stop asking that question because it's the wrong question. We have to break it into two separate questions. Is this a deal worth doing? And secondly, how do I get the resources that I will need in order to do that deal? So I want to leave you with this quote one more time, and I hope that this just bounces around in your subconscious. I hope that it's haunting you in your sleep in all the right ways, and I hope it's just infiltrating your thinking in the back of your mind and eventually in the front of your mind. And here it is. Don't tell me what you have and what you can do with it. Tell me what's possible and what you need to achieve it. And that is it for today's episode of Racking Up Rentals. So again, show notes for this episode are at thoughtfulre.com/E128. Please do us a big favor by hitting the subscribe button in your podcast app and rating and reviewing the show. I so appreciate that. I see every rating and review personally, and I'm really grateful. Did you know also that we have a Facebook group for thoughtful real estate entrepreneurs? It's called Rental Portfolio Wealth Builders, and we would love to have you join us over there. You can just go to group.thoughtfulre.com, and the magic of the internet will redirect you right to that page in Facebook. If you liked this episode, please take a screenshot of it and post it to Instagram and tag us. We are at Thoughtful Real Estate, all spelled out on Instagram. I'll see you in the next episode. Till then, this is Jeff from the Thoughtful Real Estate Entrepreneur, signing off.
Thanks for listening to Racking Up Rentals, where we build long-term wealth by being win-win deal makers. Remember, solve the person to unlock the deal and solve the financing to unlock the profits.